If you've been watching the internet over the past few days, you already know something is seriously off between Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet. But what almost nobody expected was just how cold, calculated, and humiliating the shift would be. Because the moment Timothée stepped into his big Vogue cover moment, glossy photos, dramatic styling, the full high fashion treatment, he didn't just avoid mentioning Kylie, he delivered a silent blow that hit harder than any breakup announcement, any we're-over headline, or any public confrontation ever could. He didn't yell, he didn't shade her, he didn't even hint at a problem. Instead, he chose something even worse: complete erasure. And for a woman who has spent years trying to climb out of the Instagram reality star box and force her way into elite artistic circles, that kind of silence isn't just awkward, it is devastating. Because when a man in Timothée's world refuses to acknowledge you, he isn't just avoiding drama, he's sending a message to every designer, every creative director, every film industry gatekeeper, every person Kylie has desperately tried to be taken seriously by. A message that says, without saying a word, she's not with me. She's not part of my world. You don't need to take her seriously either. And that is exactly why insiders say Kylie wasn't just upset. She was stunned, embarrassed, and genuinely shaken. Because she didn't just lose a boyfriend. She lost the credibility she thought she was finally gaining. She lost the art girl era she carefully curated. She lost the new version of herself she had shaped around him. And the cruelest part? He didn't even have to explain himself. One cold sentence, one moment of public distance, and the entire fantasy she built collapsed in front of the entire world. And that was only the beginning. Right before the Vogue cover dropped, and before the internet exploded with speculation, Kylie Jenner was doing everything she could to keep her relationship with Timothée Chalamet alive, grounding it in something real, something public, something that showed they were moving forward rather than drifting apart, and insiders say she believed she had found the perfect moment to do that. Kris Jenner's massive 70th birthday party. This wasn't just any celebration. It was a star-studded gathering filled with billionaire friends, major fashion executives, film industry heavyweights, and art world power players. The exact circle Kylie had been trying to break into since stepping beyond her Instagram billionaire image. She wanted Timothée there beside her not only as her boyfriend, but as the signal that she was leveling up, aligning herself with someone Hollywood considers refined, respected, and culturally significant. Kylie invited him with excitement, then with hope, then with worry, asking multiple times if he was coming, wanting reassurance after noticing subtle signs that he was pulling back. And at first, he said yes. He acted supportive, he sounded committed, he gave her the answer she wanted to hear, but when the day came, he backed out with a vague excuse about acting commitments, the kind of line you give when you don't want to say the real reason. And the real reason, according to people who saw the situation closely, is that he simply wanted to enjoy his life without being tied to Kylie publicly. He wasn't filming, he wasn't rehearsing, he wasn't working, he was just acting single. And for Kylie, this wasn't just a boyfriend skipping a birthday party, it was the moment she saw her social standing crack in real time. Because in the world she's trying to ascend into, absence is humiliation, silence is rejection, and skipping that event sent a louder, more cutting message than any breakup text ever could. What makes this entire situation even more painful for Kylie is that Timothée wasn't just another boyfriend. He was an aesthetic, a lifestyle, an entire personality shift she had already begun to mold herself around. And this isn't a new behavior for her, but a pattern that has followed her through every major relationship she's ever had. People online have been pointing it out for years. Kylie doesn't just date someone, she becomes them. She absorbs their style, their vibe, their world, and reshapes herself to fit what she believes they, and their social circles, want from her. When she dated Tyga, she transformed into a Black China-inspired version of herself, copying the makeup, the poses, the hairstyles, even the attitude that defined that era. When she moved on to Travis Scott, she didn't just change boyfriends, she changed cultures, shifting into a young sweet row and Persian Latina aesthetic, adopting long dark hair, earth tone fits, and a more mysterious, moody persona. Then came Timothée, and this time the transformation was even more dramatic. Because she wasn't just altering how she dressed, she was trying to enter a new identity tier. Suddenly, she leaned into minimalist fashion, softer makeup, understated luxury, delicate photography styles, and Parisian energy that looked more like Lily Rose Depp than the Kylie the world knew. It wasn't subtle, it was a complete rebranding. She adjusted her posture, her angles, her tone, the way she interacted online, trying to match the artsy intellectual girlfriend archetype that belongs in Timothée's world. And that's exactly why his silence in Vogue hit her so deeply. When Kylie falls in love, she doesn't just give her heart, she hands over her identity piece by piece, building a version of herself around the man standing next to her. And when that man chooses distance, the entire identity collapses with him, leaving her not just heartbroken, but stripped of the persona she worked so hard to build. To understand why Timothée's silence and distancing cut Kylie so deeply, you have to look back at the relationships that shaped her long before he ever entered the picture. Because the painful truth is that this pattern didn't start with Vogue, and it didn't start with Timothée. It started years ago when Kylie was still a teenager trying to navigate adult relationships she was emotionally unprepared for. Her situation with Tyga built the foundation for everything that followed, because from the very beginning, he kept her hidden. Whether it was because of the rumors, the age gap, or the drama with Blac Chyna, Kylie learned early on that being in love sometimes meant being a secret, being silent, and accepting less than she deserved. She adapted to that dynamic so young that it ended up wiring her sense of what love feels like. She was there backstage, there privately, there quietly, playing the role of a supportive partner while rarely being acknowledged as one. Then came Travis Scott, and although the relationship looked different from the outside, the emotional blueprint remained the same. They had chemistry, they had passion, they had a family together. But what they did not have was clarity, commitment, or public acknowledgement. Travis refused to define the relationship, even when Kylie was pregnant with their second child. He publicly stated they weren't together, weren't exclusive, weren't even in an open relationship, leaving Kylie to navigate motherhood while holding on to a fantasy of engagement that never came. And instead of recognizing the pattern, she normalized it. Secrecy became familiar, silence became normal, and chasing emotional validation became instinct. So when Timothée came into the picture, a man from a different world, someone who seemed more serious, more artistic, more grounded, Kylie believed she was finally breaking the cycle. Instead, she unknowingly stepped right back into it, proving that the ghosts of Tyga and Travis were still quietly shaping every choice she made. What made Timothée's silence feel so brutal to Kylie wasn't just the fact that he refused to mention her in his Vogue interview, it was the level of emotional investment she had poured into the relationship compared to what he gave back, an imbalance so obvious to everyone around her except Kylie herself. For nearly 2 years, she rearranged her entire world to fit his, hopping on private jets to see him across continents, adjusting her schedule around his filming commitments, showing up unannounced to support him, and bending her own life to align with whatever he needed in the moment. Meanwhile, Timothée gave her just enough to keep her hopeful, but never enough to make her secure. He enjoyed the attention, the headlines, the unexpected buzz that came from dating one of the most watched women on the internet. But when it came time to give even the smallest public acknowledgement of her, just a simple, "I'm happy," he chose to retreat into cold neutrality. And this wasn't about privacy, it was about signaling something. The truth is, Timothée's PR team could have killed that question before it ever appeared in print. They could have told the interviewer, "No personal life questions," or even softened the response to protect Kylie from embarrassment. Instead, they let it run exactly as it was, which insiders say made Kylie feel like they allowed the world to watch her be dismissed. His exact line, "I don't have anything to say," felt less like healthy boundaries and more like a deliberate announcement that Kylie wasn't someone worth acknowledging. And coming from a man she had built an entire aesthetic around, from a relationship she believed was finally different from her past, that kind of minimization felt like emotional whiplash. She wasn't just hurt, she felt played, exposed, and downgraded in front of the exact people whose approval she craved the most. And once that realization hit, everything she thought she understood about their relationship shattered instantly. What truly broke Kylie wasn't just the relationship falling apart, but the collapse of an entire identity era she had carefully curated around Timothée. A reinvention she genuinely believed would open doors into the elite cultural spaces she had been fighting to enter for years. With him, she felt closer than ever to that world. The Paris fashion crowd that prefers subtlety over spectacle, the indie film community that values artistry over influencer fame, the designers and creatives who still treat the Kardashian brand as something loud, commercial, and tacky. Dating Timothée wasn't just romantic for Kylie, it was symbolic. He represented validation from a world she could never quite access on her own. For a brief moment, it looked like she was finally being welcomed, invited to the right events, styled by the right teams, photographed in a new, stripped-down aesthetic that felt more refined and less Instagram-heavy. She leaned into quiet, luxury, minimalist beauty, French girl silhouettes, and the entire moody, intellectual vibe that defined Timothée's public image. But when he chose not to acknowledge her in Vogue, that entire world she had built started crumbling. His silence wasn't just silence, it was a status signal. When a man from that scene keeps you at arm's length, the people around him do the same, and the minute he refused to claim her, the energy shifted. Designers stopped whispering about her new era. Bloggers and insiders rolled their eyes at her attempt to fit into their lane. Suddenly, the girl who thought she was ascending into artistic credibility was reminded in the coldest way possible that she was still considered an outsider. Timothée didn't have to break up with her publicly. He simply had to withhold acknowledgement. And that alone stripped her of the prestige she thought she was finally earning. For Kylie, that was the humiliation no one saw coming, and the one that hurt more than losing the relationship itself. Behind the carefully curated Instagram posts and the forced smiles she continued sharing with her followers, Kylie was unraveling in a way she hadn't felt in years, because insiders say she genuinely believed she and Timothée were past the stage of hiding, guessing, or tiptoeing around the public's perception of their relationship. She thought they had reached a place where mutual respect was the bare minimum, not something she had to earn or chase. So when she saw the Vogue interview, when she saw the cold dismissal, the absence of even a hint of acknowledgement, her reaction wasn't dramatic. It was quiet devastation. Her friends said she felt blindsided, embarrassed, and strangely naive, realizing she had been far more invested than he ever was. She had already been sensing him pull away. The late replies, the change in tone, the excuses that didn't add up. But she clung to the idea that the distance was temporary, that he was busy, that the pressure of fame was making him retreat emotionally. In her mind, Vogue was supposed to be a moment of stability, a subtle confirmation that they were still on solid ground. Instead, it was the exact opposite, and what hurt her even more was the way she had been trying to protect him for months, shielding him from rumors, defending him in private conversations, reshaping her identity to fit seamlessly beside him. She gave him softness, loyalty, discretion, and emotional safety, but in return, she got indifference packaged as privacy. So she swallowed the pain, put on her usual brave face, and posted cheerful photos to convince the world she was fine. But underneath the filtered images and glossy captions, she was replaying every moment of their relationship, wondering how she could have missed the signs, and realizing she had once again fallen into a dynamic where she gave everything while the man gave the bare minimum. When you strip away the headlines, the whispers from anonymous sources, and the glossy illusion of two carefully crafted public images, the truth about Kylie and Timothée's relationship becomes painfully simple. Kylie showed up, and he didn't. For nearly 2 years, she poured herself into something that was already lopsided from the start, rearranging travel plans, adjusting her life to his schedule, and bending emotionally in ways he never once matched. She flew across continents to be near him. He barely showed up for her even when the distance was small. She made time for him during some of the busiest periods of her career. He carved out time for her only when it conveniently fit into his narrative or elevated his visibility. And when she looked for reassurance, for reciprocity, for a sign that she wasn't the only one holding the relationship together, she received the same thing she always seems to get from the men she chooses: ambiguity. Even the Vogue interview, which could have protected her if his PR team wanted to, was handled in a way that left her exposed. A simple phrase like "I'm happy" or even a warm-toned "no comment" would have softened the blow, but instead, the stark "I don't have anything to say" felt like a door closing. It's not that he hated her or wanted to hurt her, it's that he simply didn't see her as someone he owed emotional clarity to. And that realization crushed her far more than any breakup announcement, because deep down, Kylie wasn't just mourning the end of a romance, she was mourning the collapse of a belief she clung to, that this time would be different, that this man wouldn't treat her like a placeholder. that she was finally stepping into a relationship where the love, respect, and acknowledgement were equal. Instead, she found herself in the exact same dynamic she's been repeating for a decade, watching history write itself all over again. In the end, the story of Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet isn't just about a breakup, a Vogue interview, or a birthday party that never happened. It's the continuation of a deeper emotional pattern Kylie has carried with her for most of her adult life. One that keeps pulling her toward men who enjoy her presence but refuse to claim her, who take the comfort she gives but never offer the stability she needs, who soak up the attention but shy away from the responsibility that comes with being publicly connected to her. And this time, the heartbreak struck even harder because she truly believed she was breaking the cycle. She believed this relationship marked a shift towards something mature, serious, and rooted in mutual respect. She believed Timothée represented a different kind of love, one not built on secrecy or ambiguity, but instead, she found herself confronting the same old wounds dressed up in a new aesthetic. His silence wasn't loud or dramatic, but it echoed in every corner of the carefully built world she tried so hard to fit into, reminding her that no reinvention, no rebrand, no curated era can heal the emotional cracks left by years of shrinking herself to fit into someone else's life. And maybe that's the part she hasn't admitted out loud yet. The fact that losing Timothée isn't the tragedy people think it is. The tragedy is realizing she once again lost pieces of herself in the process. Because the truth is, Kylie has all the power, status, and influence in the world. Yet the only place she consistently feels small is in her relationships. And perhaps this very public, very painful silence is the moment she finally stops chasing love that requires her to disappear and instead decides to build a life and a sense of self that doesn't depend on being chosen by someone who never deserved her in the first place.